But I'm glad you mentioned Pete Hegseth, because there was this really interesting little bit of John Bolton talking about Hegseth. Listen to what he told CNN this week.
No, I think he should resign for his own safety's sake, if nothing else. This is a critical time for the American military. We understand the Trump administration will rightly propose enormous budget increases for defense. We need it. We need a secretary who can get the job done, not somebody who spends his time on Signal chat groups. I almost never used my personal phone when I was national security advisor. I mean, the breaches of security at risk in this conduct are enormous. And I think that's one reason why he shouldn't be in the job.
Now, the point about the personal devices, I think, is pretty well taken. But that bit at the beginning of that clip where he said for his own personal safety, he ought to resign, I thought there were some potentially extraordinary implications of that, Mick, and I wanted to get what your impressions were.
Yeah, I'm seeing that for the first time. I have no idea what Bolton is talking about when it comes to that. I do know this, is that John Bolton has a short list of people who he thinks would be really, really good Secretary of Defense. And on the list, at the top of the list, in fact, the only person on the list is John Bolton. I've never met anybody who's more confident of his own abilities than Mr. Bolton, and he does not like Donald Trump. The two gentlemen do not have a relationship. John was a long-serving national security advisor to the president, and then got fired, and I get all of that. But I don't look to John Bolton for sort of legitimate criticisms of Trump decision-making. He just hates the president.
Yeah, no, and I think that there's a lot of history with John Bolton and his own tenure that can also be talked about. But I want to talk about also, we've just hit the 100-day milestone marker here for Donald Trump's second presidency. Now, he celebrated the first office 100 days with a big rally. You've written, though, a great piece this week in The Hill about why the next 100 days are even more important. Can you, first of all, rate the first 100 days, but tell us what you mean? What needs to happen in the next 100 days for this administration?
Yeah, I think the first 100 days, and of course it's an arbitrary number. It goes back to Franklin Delano Roosevelt. But I think he's done A-plus work on things like immigration, deregulation. The tariff thing has been a problem, so he hasn't got an A-plus there. He's probably got a C-plus or a B-minus. He's trying to fix things. He's moving in the right direction on that. But the next 100 days is probably a lot more important. He desperately needs this tax legislation to pass, and that means there'll be a focus on debt. A lot of discussion, James, the next 100 days on debt, because they have to figure out a way to offset what they're trying to do with the tax plan. They want to spend a lot more money on defense. They think they're going to cut spending in other places. I don't know. But there's going to be a focus in this country right now on either spending less or, and I'm not making this up, raising taxes on the wealthy. You thought you'd never hear Republicans talk about that, but they are now talking about it relatively openly. And I'll be curious to see whether or not it's easier in Washington, D.C. to cut spending or raise taxes. And my money, James, is on raising taxes.
Well, yeah, that's generally the way it's been, I think, at least as far back as Ronald Reagan, which is as far back as I remember on these things. But, finally, we've also got, it's 100 days, and, of course, that means someone's trying to impeach Donald Trump. Democrat Congressman Sri Thanedar has filed 7 impeachment articles against the president, saying we do not have kings, we have presidents, and there is a reason why. The activities of this president are unconstitutional. The activities of the president, he has no regard for democracy. Well, okay, fine. I mean, this just sounds like what we normally hear on MSNBC. But this Thanedar guy is also a fairly strange character with a history involving a failed medical research company and allegations of animal cruelty. I'm just not quite sure he's the public face of who the Democrats want leading the charge against Donald Trump here. What do you think, Mick?
Yeah, if you want to go have a good giggle, find his speech on YouTube. It really is. It's bizarre. But anyway, James, and I don't know if you know this or not, he was actually able to convince a couple of the Democrats to co-sponsor that motion with him, and then they took their names off of the bill. I know that sounds like it's deep in the weeds, and probably it is, but there's nothing more insulting in Washington, D.C., in the House of Representatives, to have someone put their name on your bill as a supporter and then pull it off. But that's how toxic this individual is. Even his own Democrat colleagues are running away from him in public. So, I don't expect this particular impeachment motion to get very far.
Yeah, no, it doesn't sound like it's going too far at all. Mick Mulvaney, thanks as always for joining me. Really appreciate it.